students, my name is Maylin and welcome back to my channel. I'm a flutist, performer, and music teacher located in the city of Kamloops, British Columbia, and this is my channel where we learn all things flute, so thank you so much for joining me here today. In today's video, we'll be going on to page number 8 from the 76th graded studies for the flute part 1, so if you're interested, then just keep on watching. As always, if you do have any questions throughout the video, please feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. I do my best to answer them as soon as I see them. Also, if you're having any issues when it comes to practicing, feel free to check out my free practice guide, also located in the description down below. It gives you 8 really easy steps to follow to help you to guide your practice sessions. Also, if you are really enjoying my videos, make sure that you hit that like button and also to subscribe for more videos just like this. Alright, so let's just get right into today's video. So as I mentioned previously, we'll be starting on page number 8 of your Etudes book, and we'll be learning numbers 19 and number 20. So let's start with number 19. It's Hessian dance. I'm going to put it right over here. Alright, and as always, we're going to go through our first 6 starter bits before we get into clapping and counting the piece. So let's look at number 1, our key signature. So we're going to take a look and see if we have any accidentals in the key signature there. So right in between the treble clef and the time signature, so we do see we have 2 flats. So we have B flat and E flat. We can either be in B flat major or G minor. So let's take a look to see if we are in either one of those key signatures. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the first and the last note to see if we have the tonic of either of those key signatures. The first note and the last note is a B flat, so already it indicates that we are in B flat major. Let's take a look and see if we can find that raised sevenths, just in case we have the hint of the G minor scale in there. If you go down 1 semitone from G, that's going to be F sharp. So let's take a look at any of the Fs to see if they're sharp. So at a quick glance, I don't see any F sharps, so I would say we're in B flat major, and we are. Number 2, we're going to be looking at our time signature. So we see a 3/4. So the top number will always tell us how many beats per bar we have. So we have 3 beats in each measure. And then the bottom number tells us what kind of note type it is. 4 representing a quarter note, so that means you have 3 quarter notes per measure. Number 3, we're going to be looking at our tempo indication. So if you look at the top here, we're going to be playing at an allegretto speed. We do have the metronome marking here. So it says a quarter note equals 132. So that's going to be our final tempo. Of course, when you're first starting to learn the piece, I'd always recommend cutting it down to half to start, or even slower. So whatever tempo it is that you need to do it at, so that you're not making any mistakes. Number 4, we're going to be looking at our dynamics. So we're just going to go through it very briefly. So first we start at a forte on our first bar, so that F meaning loudly. Then we're going to play loudly all the way up until the 5th bar there, where we have a nice piano written. P represents softly. And then we're going to be playing piano until you go to bar 9, and that's a mezzo forte, meaning moderately loud. And then we don't have anything else written all the way up until bar 16, where we have that forte again. And then we are having that same pattern as we did the previous 2 lines. So we have the forte at the beginning of line 3 at bar 16, and then it goes down to piano at bar 20. The end of 20 there. We have a mezzo forte written at bar 24, and then we end at a nice forte as well. So anywhere in between those dynamic markings, feel free to experiment with the shape of the notes. So if you feel like it's going down, maybe you want to go softer, or maybe if the line of music is going up, maybe try it going a little bit louder. You can experiment with all sorts of different things, just making sure that you get those dynamic markings once they pop up there. Number 5, we're going to be looking at our articulation. So let's take a look and see if you have anything that is particularly tricky. So we do have that nice little, looks like a little decrescendo over top of that first note there. That's actually a breath accent. So making sure that every time you see that, you put a little extra ha behind that note. And we do have a pattern of that. So the first note having that accented breath mark, and then we also have 2 slurred and then a staccato. So the staccato is that little dot, just meaning detached. And you do have that similar kind of thing where we have the first 2 notes are slurred plus a staccato. And make sure that you look in the 4th bar, that we have 2 slurred and then 2 tongued with the 8th notes there. Otherwise, it is pretty similar all the way across, making sure that you do pay attention to where it does change. So make sure that on bar 12 that there's that change there, so you just have that accented first note, but then the second note is staccato. And then we do have another change at bar 16, 17, and 18. So we do have 2 noodle lines over those half notes except the first one. So 2 noodle lines, just making sure that you hold it for the note's complete length. But then after that, the markings are all pretty much the same repetitive kind of thing as we had earlier on in the piece. Just making sure that you notice that right at the end, we do have an RIT that's writ, which stands for retardando, which means to slow down gradually. And then also that last note, we do have that little curve with a dot in the middle, that's called a fermata. So that means you want to hold that note for longer than is written. You usually want to do it for an extra half amount of that note. So I would hold it for at least another beat and a half at most. And then finally, the last item, number 6, is going to be our roadmap. So that means we're going to see if we have any repeats or any da capos. And I don't see anything, so we're just going to be reading this piece from top to bottom. Alright, so I'm going to be now clapping this piece. So I'm just going to clap it at the final tempo here. Of course, if it is too fast for you, make sure you go into the playback settings. So clicking that little gear at the bottom of the play bar and going into playback settings and setting it at a slower tempo. It might distort the sound a little bit, but at least you'll get it to sound exactly where you want it to. So you can set it to 0.5 to get it half of the speed of the original one, but of course go slower until you don't make any mistakes when you're clapping it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and however long you want to hold it for. Very nice. So again, making sure that you take your time with this if you have any issues, and isolate any bars that you find that you're tripping over a few times. Like something that's a little bit tricky, make sure you just isolate it and go between 2 notes, 3 notes, and then continually adding 1 note before, 1 note after until you're able to clap and count all of it correctly. Alright, and now that we've finished that clap and count, we're going to get into playing with the flute. So again, I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to be playing it at a quarter note equals 132. If you want to hear it slower, then you can definitely go back into the playback settings and change that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So I love that little piece. I hope that you enjoy playing that one as well. Alright, and now we're going to go on to the second etude of today, number 20, and that's the Sun from the East. So I'm going to put it up right over here. And of course, we're going to go through our first 6 starter bits before getting into playing the etude here. So number 1, we're going to look at our key signature. So let's see between that treble clef and our time signature what accentals we have. In this case, we have F sharp and C sharp. And if you remember counting the strokes of our sharp keys, that we have 2 sharps, that means 2 strokes, and that would mean either be in D major or its relative minor, B minor. So let's take a look at the first and last note to see if it gives us any indication as to whether we have the tonic of either of those key signatures. If you don't look at the pickup note at the very beginning, the first full bar we do start on a D, and then the last note we do end on a D. So again, this is a very strong indication that we are in D major. But of course, we're going to be looking for that raised 7th of the minor key just to make sure that we don't see it in there, or we might have an indication of it being in there. It's a possibility. So if you go in, we know that it's B minor, then we're going to go down one semitone, and that is A sharp. So let's see if we can find any A sharps throughout the piece. And at a quick glance, I don't see any A sharps, but just make note that there is a G sharp on bar 15, which is the raised 6th of that. So we might have a little hint of minor key, but not very strongly. So I would say we're a D major, which we are. The next thing we're going to be looking at is our time signature. So again, we have a similar one to the study we just did. So we're in 3/4, so 3/4 notes per measure. And then don't forget, I forgot to mention it with the last one, that we have that nice 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 motion. Number 3, we're going to be looking at our tempo indication. So here we're going to be playing at a moderato tempo. And again, we do have the BPM marking there. So a quarter note equals 120 will be the final marking. And of course, you want to go slower if you need to when you're first learning the piece. Number 4, we're going to be looking at our dynamics. So we start on a forte on that pickup bar. So you do have nothing else written all the way through until bar 16, where we have a piano written, piano meaning softly. And then again, we do have nothing there until we have a little crescendo marking at bar 20. So we have a nice crescendo all the way to, we want to really elongate that crescendo until we get to that forte on bar 26, where we have a nice poco writ at the end. That means slowing down gradually again, or very, very little. Poco meaning little. Number 5, we're going to be looking at the articulation here. So we do have some staccatos and slurs again. It kind of, there isn't necessarily a particular pattern here, so just make sure that you are looking out for them. So when we do have a lot of quarter notes in a row, we do have some staccatos, especially at the beginning. Majority of the eighth notes are under slurs, so making sure that you do take note of that. What you can do is, if you have issues finding it when you're reading through the music, like there's too many things going on, feel free to use some colors, so like using a highlighter or even a colored pencil, and you can try and differentiate those markings visually. I would just take a note where some of the articulation will change its pattern. So we do have 2 staccato eighth notes pop up a few times. So at bar 12, for example, and also bar 16, we have that, and there's nowhere else where we have that. And then just make sure again where the pattern changes with the slurs. So bar 22, 23, 24, and 25, we have 3 slurred and 3 timed instead of it all being slurred. And then last thing, number 6, we're going to be looking at our roadmap. So we're going to see if there's any repeat sides or da capos, and if you just look very briefly, I don't see any, so that means we're just going to be reading from top to bottom. Alright, and similar to number 19, I'm going to be clapping and counting this at the final tempo. Of course, go back into playback settings to set it to as slow as you need to do it when you're practicing your clapping and counting. Alright, and make sure that you are counting that pickup bar. So we're going to be starting on beat 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, and 2, 3, and 1, and 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, and 1, and 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 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Alright, so that should be a really great challenge. Now we're going to be going to the playing with the flute. So again, same thing, I'm going to be playing it at a quarter equals 120. 1, 2, 3, 1. Wonderful! So very well played. With this piece, I would definitely make sure to break it down into smaller segments if you feel like it's a little bit too difficult to take on all at once. So you could either break it down from bar by bar, or you can even then add it into different sections. So what I would recommend is starting again by doing bar by bar, and then do it line by line and see if you can play it from the beginning of one line to the beginning of the second line, and then you can do that for all those lines and spread it out throughout a few days or a week or two and see how that helps you. Alright, so that's going to be it for today's video. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. I do my best to answer them once I see them, and of course to check out my practice guide if you're having issues with practicing. As always, thank you so much for joining me here today. I really appreciate you spending your time with me, and as always, happy fluting!